What's going on, everybody? It's your man Louie T here with a brand new installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me on this beautiful Friday. Weather's great. Um, Me and my wife have no kids this weekend. All is right with the world. Feels good. Feels good. Feels good. So I'm going into this weekend feeling great. We'll get to catch up on some TV programming. I think there's going to be some really good games in the National Football League this week. Um, Really crazy game on Thursday Night Football. We'll talk about that briefly here today. We won't harp on it too much. We did take care of that one last night, but we'll double back and touch on a couple of things there. But we'll get into Slate Skatin, something that we should have done earlier in the week. This has been a hectic week, as you can imagine, but we'll get into that today. So we will recap week 8. I will give my power index for week number 9. And then we'll get into my money picks of the week for week number 9 in the National Football League. This is a spicy week, man. A lot of evenly matched teams playing one another. And as we know, and we saw it last night, a 2-6 team beat a 6-2 team. Anything can happen. So it's any given Sunday for a reason. And so we'll talk about all of those things and more today on the LouieTeeNetwork podcast that starts now. The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 462nd installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Lots to get to today. I want to start off with some non sequitur stuff, something that's out of left field, has nothing to do with nothing. I just mentioned some TV programming that me and my wife will get to. We're behind on Abbott. I think we're 2 or 3 episodes behind on Abbott Elementary. We've fallen behind on The Penguin. We have to polish off Bel Air. We haven't finished that. Equalizer is back. We haven't even started the new season of Equalizer. So yes, there's a lot going on that has to be sorted out this weekend, and we've got plenty of time to do it. I watched a series recently, Fight Night. I don't know if any of you have watched or even know what I'm talking about, but I watched Fight Night last weekend. I binge watched it in 2 days. It was 8 episodes. It was really good. I didn't necessarily love the ending all that much per se, but I thought it was well done. I thought the acting in it was outstanding, and I thought they did a really good job of capturing the 70s. There were a couple of things that they may have missed on, but I'm nitpicking, and so I'm acting as if I grew up in the 70s or something. But all that said, I think it was a tremendous job. You know, it was well done. I love the plot. I love how everything was done, how it was set up. They gave us one little curveball. It was a good curveball, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it thoroughly. So I didn't know what to expect. Me and my wife were kind of hesitant. My wife was like, "Nah, I'm good on it. I'm not gonna watch." And I was like, "Well, I'm curious. It's there's too many heavy hitters in this thing. You know, Terrence Howard and Samuel L. Jackson and Kevin Hart and Taraji P. Henson. There's too many heavy hitters to not watch." I'm like, I got to give it a look, see, man, just to see what it's talking about. If I don't like the first episode, then I won't come back for more. And I was hooked like dope after the first episode. End up watching, I think 5 that first night. And the amount of ads on that thing was killer, but it was worth it. It was well worth it. Peacock knew what it was doing, though. Like, they knew that was going to be a big hit for them, so they put a bunch of ads in it. And it worked. Like, I was like, man, I think I want to buy a Ford truck. Anyway, I digress. Let's talk about, we got a lot to get to tonight. So without any further delay, let's get to the proceedings this evening, and let's transition to our first segment of the show. You already know what it is. Of course, it's the Gem Droppin Session. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T-double-E. Let me open you up, get you thinking a little bit. So I want to start off with my week 9 power index, and we'll get to the money game of the week while we're at it. The money matchup of the week, which is Green Bay and Detroit, a massive NFC North showdown. Jordan Love probably going to give it a go. He's not 100% healthy, however, and so that could have an impact on the game, but we'll talk about that here in a second. But before we do that, we're going to get into this week 9 power index. And before we can get to week 9, we still got to go back to week number 8 and recap where we were so that we know how we got to where we are now. So let's dive in. Let's start at week 8. Coming in at number 7 were the Washington Commanders. They were fresh off of the destruction of the Carolina Panthers, heading into their week 8 contest versus the Chicago Bears. That was a big one at home. First time they were seeing a team with the winning record since the Baltimore Ravens, and it was an opportunity for them to make a statement, and we'll talk about them here in a second. Coming in at number 6 were the Houston Texans. They had gone home and defeated the Indianapolis Colts in a game that was tightly contested, but they found a way to win. Similar to the week 1 matchup, that one was decided by 2. This one was decided by 3 points. So the 2 matchups versus Indianapolis were decided by a combined 5 points, but the Texans won both of those games. Checking in at number 5, the Green Bay Packers. Packers had gotten hot after a, I don't want to call it a slow start to the season. They were solid, but they had gotten hot, beat the Texans a couple weeks back on a walk-off field goal. Then they went to Jacksonville this past week, got it done again. But they were coming off of that impressive victory over the Texans and thus leapfrogging the Texans in this power index and checking in at number 5. Baltimore Ravens checking in at number 4. They had come off of a victory against the who did they beat? They had beaten the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Monday Night Football in impressive fashion, scoring 41 points. And they checked in at number 4. At number 3 were the Minnesota Vikings. They had just suffered their first loss of the season to the Detroit Lions in a very tightly contested ball game. Lions came away with the win on a walk-off field goal as time expired, and handed the Vikings their first loss of the season. So the Vikings were at number 3. Checking in at number 2, that same aforementioned Detroit Lions team that defeated the Minnesota Vikings, handing them their first loss, leapfrogged the Minnesota Vikings and became the number 2 team in the power index. At 5, I believe they were at 5-1 after that victory. The Lions had a bye week, so they were 5-1. And then the Chiefs remained undefeated on the season. They took care of the who did they beat? I don't want to get my games mixed up. In week 7, they had defeated. They had just come off their bye and they beat San Francisco in week 7. Wasn't pretty, but it was gritty, and most importantly, it was a dub. They remained the lone undefeated team in the NFL heading into week 8, and that's why they remained number 1 atop the power index. So now we move to week number 9, and we're up to current speed. And we've got a lot of shuffling around. A lot of teams lost that were occupying spots on the power index. So we've got a lot of shuffling. This thing had stayed pretty stagnant for the last 3 weeks or so. Picks or slots 1 through 4 had pretty much remained, the same. One move took place last week with Minnesota falling back a spot from 2 to 3 and Detroit leapfrogging them from 3 to 2. That was it. Everything else pretty much stayed intact. Baltimore jumped up to 4 last week. Houston, who had occupied the 4th spot for like 3 weeks straight, they moved back with the loss to Green Bay. So there was jockeying for position, but ultimately, a lot of things hadn't changed, right? So Green Bay. So we get to week number 9, and we start with the number 7 team. And this team has not entered into the power index since week 4. And that's the Philadelphia Eagles. Checking in at number 7. The Eagles have, come off their bye. They've won 3 straight. Feels like their offense is starting to hit its stride. They went to Cincinnati and really put a hurting on the Cincinnati Bengals. It was an impressive victory. Their defense is playing a lot better football. Ever since they've come off that bye, they've had a lot of opponents that it feels like they've been able to handle. But the thing is, you got to find a way to win in this league. And they're not only winning, they're getting better as the weeks progress. And so all of a sudden now, this is a team that feels like they could be starting to make that surge and start to play the kind of football that we thought they were capable of playing. So this Philadelphia Eagles team right now playing good football. Like, it is what it is. You could argue that who have they beat during this stretch? I mean, I don't like to play that game. You can only beat who they put in front of you, and that's what they've done, beating Cleveland. Then they beat the Giants, and now they've beaten Cincinnati and beat them up good 37-17. And right now, it feels like this offense is starting to click. Feels like this defense is starting to get into a rhythm, and all of a sudden, the Eagles are starting to look like the team a lot of people thought they were going to be before this season started. And so they hit the power index at number 7. Checking in at number 6 are the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a team that you're a little leery of. I've struggled with the Steelers this season as far as putting them on the power index. I think they were up here once. The same fate I think both teams had in week 4. These Steelers and those Eagles both were in the power index in week 4, coincidentally enough, in the same order, right? Steelers at 6, Eagles at 7. And so this Steelers team, you wonder if what they're doing is sustainable. It feels a lot more sustainable now that Russell Wilson is at the helm as the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. The offense feels more vibrant. It feels more alive. It feels more dynamic. It feels like an offense that can score enough points to complement what is a very good defense. And they took care of the Giants on Monday Night Football 26-18. Running their record to 6-2, AFC North best 6-2. Now a game ahead of the Baltimore Ravens, who fell last week, which is a shock to a lot of people in an upset loss, which is why the Ravens are no longer on the power index themselves. So off goes one AFC North team, on comes another AFC North team, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers checking in at number 6 on the power index. Since the Dallas loss, they've reeled off 3 straight victories, and now the Steelers are 6-2. Checking in at number 5 are the Washington Commanders. This is a team that had quite the dramatic week number 8 victory, beating the Chicago Bears 18-15 with one of the greatest walk-off Hail Marys you will see. It was a sight to behold, a sight for sore eyes, a game that was really dominated by the Commanders for most of it. And the Commanders led the game. They didn't trail in the game until the final 23 seconds. They essentially led in this game for the better part of 36 minutes or so. Roughly, they didn't trail until the 59 37 mark of the ball game, aka 23 seconds left. They dominated this game in every way imaginable, yardage wise, third downs. They won the turnover battle. Any way you want to slice it, they dominated this game. Doubled up the Bears in pass yards. Almost had 500 yards of total offense, but they didn't dominate the place that it mattered the most, and that's the scoreboard. And the Bears almost got them. But that Hail Mary or the Washington walk-off, a.k.a. the Bear Trap, a.k.a. Noah's Ark, happened, and it changed everything. And so this Commanders team, who was 23 seconds away from, really 2 seconds away from being removed from the power index altogether and being removed from the top slot in the NFC East, still remains atop the NFC East and still remains in the power index. And they've moved up a couple of spots from number 7 to number 5. Coming in at number 4 are the Buffalo Bills. This is a team that I've struggled with again this season because every time I start to warm up to the Bills, something goes horribly wrong. This was a team that early in the season I disregarded because I didn't love their schedule. But you start 3-0, respect must be given. But I said we're going to find out a lot about the Bills once this part of the schedule hit. That part of the schedule hit, and they dropped 2 straight games against Baltimore and Houston. And so I soured on Buffalo. Since that loss to Houston, they've run off 3 straight. They've gotten their act together. They're 6-2. They're leading their division, and they're a good football team. And thus, this Buffalo Bills team, they took care of business in week number 8. Now, it wasn't pretty a couple of weeks ago when they beat Tennessee. Initially, that was a 10-7 ball game at half, but they turned it up in the second half, took care of business. They dominated the Seattle Seahawks from start to finish of that football game. That game never really felt close. They win 31-10, and now they're 6-2, as I mentioned, lead their division. They're one of the better teams in the AFC, and they're one of the better teams on the power index as they come in at number 4. Coming in at number 3, the Green Bay Packers. Like, this is a team that's easy to kind of sleep on. We've seen a lot of Malik Willis this season, and they just find ways to continue to win despite Jordan Love dealing with a assortment of ailments. This time, his groin was the culprit that didn't allow him to finish the game against Jacksonville on Sunday. Yet Malik Willis comes in, and the Green Bay Packers, they did it again, walk it off. They had done it the week before against Houston with their new kicker, Brian, not Brian. What is his damn name? Sheesh. Brandon McManus. That's his name. Brandon McManus was signed 2 weeks ago. First game, he kicks a walk-off against Houston. The following week, he kicks a walk-off against his former team, the Jacksonville Jaguars, in a 30-27 victory for the Packers. So the Packers are now 6-2. The Packers are a half game behind the Detroit Lions for first place in the NFC North. And so they've got a massive showdown this week. And the winner of that game will take a massive step in the right direction towards trying to win that very tightly contested division. Speaking of which, the aforementioned Detroit Lions check in at number 2. They lost in week 2 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They have not lost since. They've won 5 in a row. They're 6-1 on the season. Jared Goff is playing out of his mind. Right now, he just came away with the NFC Offensive Player of the Month. And go figure, he had a game last month where he did not incomplete a pass. He was 18 of 18 against the Seattle Seahawks on a Monday night game. I think he had 3 or 5 incompletions against Dallas in a throttling of the Cowboys 47-9. Keep in mind, they scored 42 in the game against Seattle. They scored 47 in the game against Dallas, and they scored 56 points in the game against the Tennessee Titans this past weekend. The Lions, or excuse me, 52 points. The Lions have it stuck. I think they're the first team to score 50 this year, if I'm not mistaken, if my memory serves me correct. They got it stuck on automatic on offense after a real struggle to start this season. Remember, I asked the question here on this very podcast, what's going on with the Lions offense, right? Their defense seemed to be the catalyst early in the season. They were winning games strictly off of their defense. They were getting some special team contributions here and there, but for the most part, their defense was carrying the day. Now, all of a sudden, their offense can't do any wrong. And the latest victim was the Tennessee Titans. That one got ugly. It was 14-14. And then all of a sudden, they shut the faucet off completely on the Titans, and that thing went sideways fast. The Lions are now number 2, or remain number 2. They were there last week as well on the Power Index. And then, of course, you already know who's number 1 on the Power Index. Until they lose, until somebody knocks them off their perch, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to remain atop this division until otherwise notified. And they got it done again. This time over the Las Vegas Raiders on the road, 27-20. They just find ways to win. That was another one of those tightly contested ball games on the road. They had one of those about 3 weeks ago against the Chargers. Took care of business there. Was it pretty? I think that one was 17-10. So they just find ways to win, man. 27-20 on the road versus the Vegas Raiders. They improved to 7-0 on the season. And I don't think they're going undefeated. But as I say that, who's beating them, right? Someone's got to beat them. It's got to be a team like Buffalo or Houston when they get their act together. It's got to be somebody like that, right? You would assume. But I don't know if anybody in their division can get them. You know, maybe Denver can get them with that defense. You know, maybe it could be a defensive struggle and Denver can make enough plays to win. But, you know, the Chargers had a shot. This is the tough thing. And the one thing I can say about the Chargers, and maybe to a lesser degree the Raiders, they're not afraid to go to Arrowhead. You know, the Raiders beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead on Christmas Day last year. So they're not afraid to go in there. This is a different Raiders team, though. The confidence level is different. That was the honeymoon phase with Antonio Pierce. That ship has sailed. And the Chargers aren't afraid to go into Arrowhead and win, but I don't know if they have enough offense, to be honest with you. You know, so we'll see what happens. It's funny because this Chiefs team doesn't feel invincible. They feel very beatable, but every week they find a way to win. So it's easy to say they won't go undefeated, but till somebody beats them, they're undefeated and they remain atop the Power Index. So let's transition very quickly to my money matchup of the week, and it pits two NFC North teams squaring off in a massive matchup of NFC North supremacy. I think the winner of this game is going to win the division. Now, obviously, these two teams will lock horns once more later on in the season in Detroit. And remember, Green Bay went to Detroit on Thanksgiving last year and beat the shit out of them. Well, they got off to a great start. I think that thing was 28-3 at halftime, and then Detroit made a furious run, but it was too little too late, and they fell short, and Green Bay held on and won. But I only say that and I only bring that up as context to tell you that if Detroit goes in there and wins, it doesn't mean that this thing's over, because Green Bay could easily do what they did last year, go into Detroit, into the Lions' den, and come out victorious. So I just feel like if the Lions win this game, that's 6 in a row. They're 7-1. The next time these two teams meet, it'll be in Detroit. I just like the odds of them coming out on top in this division. Meanwhile, if Green Bay wins this game, I don't think it necessarily. I think it's more so if Detroit wins this game. But if Green Bay wins this game, with all the injuries, with all the things they've had to overcome this year, if they find a way to beat the Lions, um, I think that would do a world of good for their confidence. I think it could send their confidence through the roof. I think this is already a confident bunch based off of the things that they've gone through this year and how they've had to overcome adversity. I mean, they've been pretty fortunate to be playing the AFC South this year, right? Because in most of the games without Jordan Love, they've played AFC South opponents. They played the Titans without Jordan Love. They played the Colts without Jordan Love, and they just beat Jacksonville in a game that Jordan Love did not finish. Had they been playing a different division, any division, just pick a division in the NFL that's not the AFC South, they probably don't go 3-0 in those 3 games, right? I think that makes sense. They've already swept that division, right? They beat Houston on a walk-off field goal. They beat Jacksonville in a similar fashion. Malik Willis took care of both Indianapolis Colts and the Tennessee Titans. So this is a good Packers team, but how good, right? We've seen the Lions beat good teams, quality opponents, home, on the road. It doesn't matter. They've kind of run the gauntlet this season thus far. So we know the Lions are a good football team. How good are the Green Bay Packers, right? Their record says they're good, but the opponents that they've played, not so much. That Houston win holds a lot of weight with me. However, the Texans are extremely banged up. That's no excuse. A lot of teams are banged up, including the Packers, and they found a way to win. And I do take that into consideration as well. So this is a big matchup. Goff is playing phenomenal football. That offense is just off the hook right now. They can do no wrong, it feels like. And so we'll see if Green Bay can slow that Lions offense down that has just been a powerhouse. And this is something that a lot of people aren't mentioning with Detroit. They're creating turnovers. I think they might have created like 6 turnovers in this game on Sunday versus Tennessee. Every possession you looked up, the Titans were turning it over. The Lions were punching the ball out, recovering, picking the ball off. You name it, they did it. After a slow start defensively in that game when Tennessee was able to score 14 early points to make it very interesting early, big shit got out of control fast. And so can the Lions defensively without Aiden Hutchinson, and I still think they're going to make a move prior to the trade deadline, can they continue to find ways to create turnovers? Jordan Love is a turnover machine. So if he plays, I like their chances to pick off at least 1, maybe even 2 passes in this game because Love's going to give you an opportunity to do that. If it's Malik Willis, the play calling will be a little bit subdued. They'll be a lot more cautious in how they run their offense. You'll get a heavy dose of the run game and Josh Jacobs, which I think you're going to probably get anyway, but you'll get an even heavier dose if the quarterback is Malik Willis at any point in this game. And so that's something to take into consideration if you're Detroit. But when it's all said and done, what it's going to come down to is which one of these 2 teams can protect the ball the best, which one of these 2 teams who feature really good run games. Both of these teams have run the ball very successfully this season. The Packers, mostly Josh Jacobs. They've got 3 backs that they feature, but it's mostly Josh Jacobs doing the heavy lifting. Meanwhile, the Lions have one of the most vicious 2-headed running back monsters in the NFL in Sonic and Knuckles, obviously Montgomery and Gibbs. So if the Lions are able to establish Sonic and Knuckles, it could be curtains for the Green Bay Packers, or tails. See what I did there? But if they're able to slow down the rushing attack of the Detroit Lions and they force Jared Goff into some long down and distances, maybe, just maybe, they'll be able to slow down this high-powered Detroit Lions offense. It should be a really fun matchup to watch kind of unfold. I don't think the Packers defensively are good enough, and they've got a slew of injuries. You know, Jair Alexander. I don't know who all is going to play, not play in this game. It really doesn't make any difference to me because I just think the Lions are the better team right now. And I think Jameson Williams is serving a 2-game suspension, I believe. Doesn't matter. Not with the way the Lions are playing football. It doesn't matter. But we'll see, right? Ultimately, I like the Lions in that ball game. And I think they're going to go to Lambeau Field. You know, assert themselves, establish dominance on the ground. Golf with the play action game right now has it stuck on automatic. I think that defense is going to create a couple of turnovers, especially if Love gives it a go, which I expect him to. This is the Packers' biggest game of the season. They'll be wearing their alt unis. And can I just say, because we didn't talk about this a couple of weeks ago, can I say that the Packers all white, icy whites, those were wow. Somebody, I think it was my guy Kevin in PRF, was like, I don't like those all white uniforms with the white helmet. They might as well be the Indianapolis Colts. And I'm like, hey, old man, get off my lawn. Get out of here. Scoot. those were fire, right? Those were cold-blooded. And now they're going to wear another alt uniform. It's crazy because for years, the Packers, you never caught them wearing anything but their traditionals. Now, we've had two different, uniform combinations in 3 weeks. This is their all green alt uni with the all yellow helmets. So this should be interesting. I mean, we've seen it before, but nonetheless, I like them a lot. Those white ones, at least. So anyway, I digress. So let's get to Slate Skatin and talk about Week 8 in the National Football League. I'm going to make this nice and quick since we're on the eve of. We've already had a Week 9 game take place, and everyone's kind of transitioned to Week 9. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these games. I'll just give you my quick thoughts on what I saw, and then we'll move on. So Jets, Patriots. We've seen the Jets already in Week 9. So again, they were riding after this loss to the Patriots, 25. Remember, this was on the heels of the Patriots head coach, Dante Hightower. Not Dante Hightower. Gerard Mayo, excuse me, calling his team soft, right? They lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars over in London. They come back home, and he called them soft. Said, we don't play special teams. We don't tackle. We're not physical on special teams. We don't stop the run. We don't run the ball effectively. These are all things. These are all manhood issues. These are all things that if you want to establish physicality in the NFL, you need to do. You need to tackle on special teams. You need to run the football offensively. You need to be able to stop the run, and we can't do any of them, right? Tank Bigsby went off on them in that game over in London. They gave up a 96-yard punt return for a touchdown, and they couldn't run the ball themselves. So he was really disappointed, and his team, I guess they responded to his challenge, essentially calling them soft. They go out and they beat the New York Jets and make it 5 straight losses for the Jets. It was a big upset. I mean, not that the Jets were world beaters going into the game, but even at 2-5, we expected the Jets to sweep the Patriots. They had beat them up pretty good just about a month ago on Thursday Night Football, 24-3 or something to that effect, 27-3, something like that. So you were expecting them to be able to take care of business, but that did not happen. And Drake May left this game with a concussion. And so in comes Jacoby Brissett, and I think that might have stabilized the offense. He came in and they kind of just settled down. And then you kind of felt like, all right, Jets, if you keep letting them hang around, you're going to lose this game. And sure enough, the Jets let the Patriots hang around and hang around and hang around. And so the Jets scored a touchdown late with just under 3 minutes to go in the game. And most people felt like that was it. That's the knockout blow, right? Because the Patriots aren't scoring a touchdown. And Jacoby Brissett took them down the field. They ran the football. They got into the scoring distance, and you're like, all right, Jets, what you going to do? And Ramondre Stevenson got in the end zone with 22 seconds left, and you knew that was it. Like, that's ball game. And they got the win, did the Patriots. 25-22, which was just insane. I just was blown away by their ability to find a way to win that game. Both teams were 2-6 after that contest. We've since seen the Jets go on to win on Thursday Night Football over the Houston Texans, 21-13, snapping their 5-game skid. They're now 3-6 on the season. It was a big win, a huge game for Garrett Wilson with a couple of ridiculous one-hand grabs for touchdowns, but the second one was just utterly insane. It'll probably be the best catch we see all season. I don't want to say shades of Odell Beckham Jr., but it's probably the closest thing we've seen to that kind of a catch since the Odell, what was that, a Sunday nighter, right, against the Cowboys? Anyhow, Patriots themselves snap a losing streak. They had lost 6 in a row. Remember, they won week 1 versus Cincinnati, hadn't won since. Now they're 2-6 as well, and they've snapped a nasty 6-game skid. Bengals hosting the Eagles. Talked about this one when we got to the Eagles on the power index, but quickly, this was a clinic offensively by the Philadelphia Eagles in this game. The Bengals have been bad defensively for much of the season, but this was really bad. The Eagles punted once in this game, one time. They scored on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 8 possessions, and they scored on 5 straight possessions in this game. After a field goal early and then a punt, the Eagles proceeded to score on 5 consecutive possessions, and they really put belt to ass in this game on the Cincinnati Bengals. So much so that I turned this thing off about maybe 2 minutes into the fourth quarter. I was like, this shit's over. Let me watch something more competitive. And I generally don't do that, right? But I saw where that thing was heading, and I'm like, Jets are struggling over here with the Patriots. The Jags and the Packers were playing a very competitive game. Let me get to some more competitive action, because this was not that. And I was shocked. Like, after I heard pregame T. Higgins wasn't going to play, I was like, okay, that's going to make it a lot easier on Philadelphia. But I still thought that the Cincinnati Bengals defense had played better of late, and that they were going to be able to keep this thing competitive and give themselves a chance. And that is not what happened in this game. Credit goes to the Eagles offense for really revving it up after a slow start to the game. And Hurts, 16 of 20, 236, touchdown, no interceptions, and 3 touchdowns. Like that, the brotherly shove is it's not as automatic as it used to be, but it's still pretty much automatic, right? So they get down there, and Jalen Hurts hogged all the touchdowns. I thought they would give it to Saquon once, right? Like let him eat a little bit. I mean, he did do some heavy lifting in this game, 22 carries, 108 yards. Let them get one of these joints. Nah, they let Jalen Hurts get all 3 of them. But the receivers were huge. Smitty and Devontae and AJ, both over 80 yards in this game. Grant Calcaterra had a really good game as well. The defense, they took it to Joe Burrow in this offense. After a slow start, Burrow went down, scored a touchdown. They got a field goal in the second possession. You thought, okay, they're going to be able to move it on them. They weren't able to run the ball consistently in this game. That put them in some tough situations on third downs. And you knew without T. Higgins to balance the football field, all of the focus of the defense was going to go to Jamar Chase, and they were really able to really take him away and neutralize him. Mike Gesicki had a good game, but Mike Gesicki isn't a game changer, right? So Eagles shut them down, beat them up, 37-17, remain a half game behind Washington in the division. And don't look now, but that's 3 straight victories for the Eagles, 2 of which, the last 2, blowout victories. Meanwhile, for the Cincinnati Bengals, you're now 3-5. It's getting late early. Like, I don't really know. I can't quit Cincinnati because the AFC wild card isn't impressive to me right now. And it's hard for me to quit Cincinnati because I know that if Joe Burrow is healthy with the guys that they have, if they can stay healthy, and that has been an issue, especially with T. Higgins, it's going to be tough. Boy, did they miss Joe Mixon. I think they underestimated what Joe Mixon meant to that offense because their running backs ain't shit. They just don't get enough out of the position. But it's not just that. Their defense is just not good. And I can't really quite put my finger on why it's not good. Trey Hendrickson is one of the leaders in the league in sacks. I can't tell you why their defense, but it's just not good. And the Eagles proved that again, and now they're 3-5. And so I don't know. I don't know about Cincinnati this year. They just might not be good this year, right? And you might have to come to grips with that. Packers and Jags, 30-27 victory for the Green Bay Packers. They walk it off with a Brandon McManus field goal for the second week in a row. Jordan Love was dealing with a groin injury pretty much the entire game. He injured his groin in the first quarter, tried to gut it out, went all the way to the third quarter with that injury, and then he finally bowed out. And Malik Willis took over and did an admirable job. He came in. He didn't look. Willis has done a great job of coming in and just not turning it over, right? And so he did that again in this game. Came in 4 of 5 for 56 yards and a touchdown. Love threw an interception before he left the game. That's what Jordan Love does, right? But Willis came in, kind of, stabilized things. But this real story here is Josh Jacobs. Money well spent in the offseason. 25 carries, 127 yards, and 2 touchdowns, including a 38-yard touchdown gallop. That was huge at that time of the game. And so he continues to really carry this offense while they try to, figure out the quarterback situation. But they continue to score points. They continue to run the football, and they continue to overcome mistakes and find ways to win. Jacksonville, on the other hand, gave it a valiant effort. And despite losing their top 2 targets on offense at the receiver position in Christian Kirk to a broken clavicle or broken collarbone, same thing, and a injury to their star rookie wide receiver, Brian Thomas Jr., who suffered an oblique injury, who's out 2 to 4 weeks now. They still went down the field, scored a touchdown, tied this game up at 27, right? Still did that. Unfortunately, their defense could not prevent the Packers from getting into field goal range to then walk it off, which is ultimately what happened. Tanks, I can say this, though. This is the one thing I can say about what Jacksonville is doing. If nothing else, Tank Bigsby is emerging as a dynamic RB1. I think his ascension is minimizing the role of a Travis Etienne. And not to say that he's a trade candidate, but I feel like Travis Etienne is a trade candidate at this point. So something to keep an eye on. Lawrence didn't play poorly in this game. And like I said, despite not having his top 2 targets at the very end, he still was able to take him down the field and get him into the end zone. It was a hell of a catch by Evan Ingram. He's really good, is Evan Ingram. Not going to spend a lot of time on this one. Titans get throttled, destroyed, dismantled, disassembled, 52-14. This was a 14-14 game at one point, if you can believe that. I know it's hard to believe. I watched it. This is another game I turned off, right? Obviously, for obvious reasons. But this is 14-14, and I'm watching this thing, and I'm like, look at Tennessee. Last week, it's 10-7 at halftime. They were leading the Bills. This week, it's 14-14 in the second quarter. Look at the Titans. And then I said, oh, look at the Titans. Oh, you're the Titans. And they're the Lions. And then the shit got ugly quick. Lions scored 21 points in the second quarter after scoring 14 in the first quarter. And that thing went from 14-14 to 35-14 at halftime. And I'm like, well, this is over. That was fun while it lasted. And it went from bad to worse in the second half. Let me see how many turnovers the Titans had, because this shit was comical. At one point, you were like, okay, can we just wave the white flag here? Because the Lions had a punt return for a touchdown. Jared Goff was doing whatever he wanted. The running backs were doing whatever they wanted. Jared Goff, I think he only threw like 10 passes in this game. 12 of 15 for 85 yards for Jared Goff and 3 touchdowns. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs, 11 carries, 127 yards, and a touchdown. He had the 70-yard run. Khalif Raymond, the former Tennessee Titan, had a punt return for a touchdown in this game. The Lions were doing whatever the hell they wanted to do. It was laughable. The Titans had 4 turnovers. It felt like 10 watching it. It just felt like every possession ended in a turnover, but they had 4 turnovers in this game. The Lions had 5 trips to the red zone. They scored touchdowns on all 5 of those trips. I mean, that's how you score 52, right? Anyway, I digress. The Titans are one of the worst teams in football. They're 1-6. Meanwhile, the Lions are one of the best teams in football. They're 6-1. Falcons, Bucks, NFC South family business. You know how the family do it. And this was a rematch of some classic family business we just saw a couple weeks back on Thursday Night Football when Kirk Cousins threw for over 500 yards and the game-winning score in overtime as the Falcons beat the Bucks in a thriller a couple weeks back. A lot has changed since that game, right? Especially for Tampa. No Mike Evans, no Chris Godwin, who's pretty much done for the season. They look a lot different now, but I got to give the Bucks credit, man. They competed their asses off in this game. I didn't think it would be this close, but they just didn't have enough when it was all said and done. Falcons win the game 31-26. Kyle Pitts, go have yourself a day, man. I think this is what Falcons fans have been expecting for Kyle Pitts. He just hasn't been producing this for them for whatever reason, but Kirk Cousins continues to play well. Here we go. 23 of 29, 276, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Kyle Pitts, 4 catches, 91 yards, 2 of those 4 catches, touchdowns, right? So he was huge. One of them was a 49-yard score. I want to say it was on the first possession of the game. So he's starting to get into a rhythm with Kirk Cousins. They're starting to hit a lot of big plays. The run game was solid, but this was about the Falcons' pass game and their timely stops in this game, as they were able to do just enough late to preserve the victory and win this game. 2 turnovers by the Bucks in this game that hurt them as well. 3 turnovers, excuse me, in this game by the Bucks hurt them as well. But Baker Mayfield hung tough. Like, again, this was a game that you expected them to lose and maybe not even be, close in this game. Baker, 37 of 50 for 330 yards, 3 touchdowns. The 2 interceptions were huge. Bucky Irving also had a fumble in this game, or excuse me, Rashad White had a fumble in this game. That was a big fumble, relatively early in the ball game. So this is a Bucks team that now is going to have to heavily rely on guys like Cade Otton and Bucky Irving and the rookie Jalen McMillan to try to step up in the absence of their dynamic duo at the receiver position, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. The Falcons get it done again after an ugly loss on the road at Seattle the week prior. They bounce back, get it done, win again. That's their 4th win in the division, if I'm not mistaken. They've gone to Carolina, won, gone to New Orleans and won, or was that game at home? That game was at home. They went to Carolina and won. They beat New Orleans at home. They beat Tampa Bay at home, and now they've beaten Tampa Bay on the road. So they're 4-0 in that division, and that's how you win the division, right? 4 out of their 5 wins have come in the division. The problem with Atlanta right now is they can't win outside of the division. They're going to have to do that if they're going to want to go anywhere this season. But they're 5-3, and they lead the division now over Tampa by a full game. But keep in mind, they swept the Buccaneers. So essentially, that's a 3-game lead over Tampa because they're up 1. If they're tied, they win the tiebreaker. They'd have to win that's a 2-game lead. Let's just call it that. But if they're tied, right, they still win the division. So you'd have to beat them by a game, right? You have to finish better than them by a game in order to win the division. And that's a tall order for a Buccaneers team dealing with the injuries that they have. And oh, by the way, Bucks played the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. Good luck. You're going to need it. Falcons go back home for the 50th time this season and host the Dallas Cowboys. Cardinals, Dolphins. What a game this was. This was fun. It wasn't fun for me. I had the damn Dolphins in this game, but watching it was fun, at least. This thing came down to the wire. It never felt like Arizona was going to win this game until, and it seems like the Dolphins games this season have had turning points, specifically with Tua in the lineup. This was Tua's game, first game back from the injury, right? And so I thought he'd make a massive difference with the pass game. I thought he would be able to come in there and we'd see Tyreek Hill and all these guys kind of get off. And it kind of felt the same. Like Tyreek Hill was a little bit more of a factor, but I went through a phase with Miami where I forgot Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle were even on their team. They were so insignificant with the quarterback play being as bad as it was, which I didn't think was possible with a guy like Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle, right? Just get it to him. Find a way, a slant, right? They can do the rest. So Tua's, reinsertion into the lineup felt like it was going to breathe life into the Dolphins again. And for about 2.5 quarters, it did exactly that. Then I told you that they always feel like there's this turning play, in their games. And they were up 20-10 were the Dolphins. And they were dominating the game, and it felt like they were in total control. And then they snap a ball over Tua's head. It goes into the end zone. And Tua, he tries to bat it out of the end zone. He kind of whiffs, but he gets just a piece of the ball. And it's just enough of it to send it towards the back of the end zone. And then, goofball Cardinal players, instead of them trying to keep it in bounds, I got to recover it. I got to be the one to recover it. I know I got to recover it. I know I got to recover it. And they go fighting over it, and it goes out the back of the end zone. And so it ends up being a safety. But that safety changed everything. It changed everything. It went from Dolphins dominating the game up 2 scores to Dolphins up 1 score, 8-point lead, to Arizona getting the safety, getting the football, scoring a touchdown, going for 2, tying the game up, or they didn't tie the game up. They went for 2, they didn't get it. Dolphins didn't score a touchdown. Feels like that kind of reestablished them, as the alphas in this game. They go up 9, so they're up 2 scores, but Arizona goes down, scores a touchdown, cuts it to 2. Dolphins can't get the first downs that they need to possess the ball to keep it away from Arizona. Arizona gets the football, and they drive it down the field. And this is an impressive drive. They did the same thing that they practically did the week before at the end of the game against the Chargers. They turned James Conner loose. And when he starts barking, he'll bite your ass, okay? You get close enough, he'll bite your ass, okay? And they turned him loose at the end of that game, and he started running like a madman, and next thing you know, they're in field goal range. And for the second week in a row, their rookie kicker banged it through the uprights, Chad Ryland, and they walk away winners for the second week in a row in walk-off field goal fashion. That's why Chad Ryland was the NFC Special Teams Player of the Month, because he had 2 walk-off field goals 2 weeks in a row. And the Cardinals somehow go into Miami and somehow come out victorious 28-27, spoiling Tua's return. And don't look now, but the Arizona Cardinals back to 500 at 4-4. Meanwhile, the Dolphins, that felt like a last gasp. That felt like a game they needed to get. That would have got them within a game of 500 at 3-4. And then who knows what happens? You got Buffalo this week. Who knows, right? Now you're 2-5, and that felt like a death blow. It really did. And the shame of it is that wasn't a bad performance by their offense. Tua kind of came in, stabilized things. 28-38, 234, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. And because of his presence, something that they didn't have the last 5 games or so with him being out, they could run it, right? That's been something that we've come to know and love with the Dolphins, is their ability to run the football. Devin Achane had 10 carries for 97 yards. They had 150 yards of rush offense. They averaged 6 yards a carry and 2 touchdowns in this game. They ran the ball effectively for the first time since Tua left the lineup, essentially, because it was easy to just load the box, stop the run, because you weren't fearing any of the passers that they were putting under center. With Tua back, it opened up the offense, gave them some space in the run game, and they still found a way to lose the game. And that's what bad teams do, right? That's what bad teams do. So moseying right along. The big upset of the day in week number 8 was the Cleveland Browns beating the Baltimore Ravens. And football is a game of inches. We talk about that all the time. And no team, I think, epitomizes that more than the Baltimore Ravens this season. So in week 1, it was a big toe of Isaiah Likely that stopped them from beating the Kansas City Chiefs because they were going to go for 2 and they were going to get it and they were going to win that game. I'm convinced of it. Okay. I thought I was going to lose. I haven't lost a Thursday night game yet this season. And I thought I was going to lose the first one because I said, if they score this touchdown, I know John Harbaugh, he's going for 2. And remember, when they thought it was a touchdown, what did Harbaugh do immediately? 2 fingers. Hey, we're going for 2, right? We're going for 2 in the win because that's what the dogs do, right? The bitch ass coaches in that situation, let's just kick the extra point. Commanders fans know what I'm talking about. You're on the road, it's a opponent that's better than you. What are we doing? We don't need to go to overtime. We don't need to see more of this shit. Let's end it now, right? Either we're gonna win this bitch or we're gonna lose. And that toe was out of bounds, and the Chiefs were able to prevail. This game came down to a Jameis, and this is the story of Jameis Winston's career. Jameis is having a ball game. Go have yourself a day, Jameis Winston, right? He's having himself a ball game. And Jameis Winston is 20 at this point of the game. He's 25 of 39 for about 300 and he's up for about 296. He's about 35 of 30 35 25, of 39 for about 296. He's having himself a ball game. And he hasn't turned it over. And it's 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And they're right there, right? They're right there in this ball game, hanging tough with the Ravens. They just need one more score, right? One more chance, right? They're down 24-23. You know you need a touchdown. You know you need to, because a field goal is going to get you beat. You kick a field goal in this situation, all they're going to do is get in the field goal range with Justin Tucker, and they're going to kick a 52-yard field goal and beat you, right? Don't leave it to chance. Go win the game, right? So Jameis goes for the gusto, and in typical Jameis Winston fashion, he's played well all game. He's kept the ball out of harm's way. He throws it right to Hamilton, the safety for the Ravens. And you can't gift wrap an interception any better than this one, Jameis. You hear this all the time. Interceptions in the NFL generally happen on tips and overthrows. And this was an overthrow to end all overthrows. He threw it right to Hamilton. And Kyle Hamilton drops the football. And he stayed on the ground for about 25 seconds. I kid you not, in disbelief, because this guy can catch the football. That's one of the things that made him a first-round pick out of Notre Dame, was his ability to take it away. And I don't know if he was surprised that the ball was thrown directly to him, because that's what Jameis does, or if he just took his eyes off of it. He didn't see it all the way in. I don't know what happened, but he dropped it. And this is the NFL. You know what happens on the next play, don't you? We all know what happens on the next play. Jameis Winston throws a 40-yard touchdown. Let's see how far that touchdown was. On the next play, Jameis Winston throws a 38-yard. Damn, I'm good. A 38-yard touchdown. To Cedric Tillman. You knew that was going to happen. You knew it was going to happen. They go for 2, they don't get it, but it didn't matter. Defense was able to keep Lamar and the Ravens from getting in the end zone. And the Ravens, who were as hot as any team in the NFL, they lose. Remember, the Ravens started 0-2, right? The Ravens started 0-2. They had won 5 straight. They go to Cleveland, and I think this was validation for a lot of people like myself who said, if you just bench Deshaun Watson, you'll have a shot. I promise you. You might not win them all because Jameis is going to turn the bitch over, and he tried. When the game was on the line, he tried to throw a pick to lose you the game. He tried. And Kyle Hamilton didn't want it. He catches that pick, the game's over. They're going to win the game. But had they benched Deshaun Watson, which it's tough to do. I get it. I understand. But if they had benched him already, they wouldn't have been in this predicament. They wouldn't be 2-6 right now with their season pretty much over. They would be, 3-5, 4-4 right now, and they'd have a shot. They lost some games this season they had no business losing, or at least they should have beat the Giants, right? They were non-competitive. They could have beat the Eagles, right? That was a 20-16 game. They didn't even score an offensive touchdown. You put Jameis Winston in the game, they're probably going to score an offensive touchdown or two. The Giants game, you have no business losing to the Giants at home, right? But at the end of the day, if you're the Ravens, it's family business. We get it. I understand. AFC North, family business. If these two teams said they ain't did it, then they ain't did it. But if they did, well, that's family business. You stay out of business that doesn't concern you, right? I get it. But at the same time, you can't lose to a 1-6 Cleveland Browns team. You want to win this division or not? Now all of a sudden you're trailing the Pittsburgh Steelers, who took care of business on Monday Night Football versus New York Giants. So now, granted, the Steelers have not played a single game within the division. That is about to change, and they're going to obviously have to play a bunch of them in a very condensed amount of time. So we're going to find out about Pittsburgh here shortly. Meanwhile, Baltimore has gone to Cincinnati, gone to Cleveland now. And they didn't win in Cleveland, but they're going to enjoy some home cooking down the stretch. We'll see if they take care of business. But that's a tough, bitter pill to swallow if you're the Baltimore Ravens. And to add injury to insult, Lamar Jackson came out of this game a little banged up. He missed the first 2 days of practice. He was able to practice on Friday, which is good news for Baltimore. I never thought he wasn't going to play in the game on Sunday. It's a big one against Denver. We're going to talk about that here in a second. But a big win for Cleveland, right? It just goes back to the original point of Deshaun Watson is the common denominator when this team struggles. So anyway, I digress. Colts, Texans get it done 23-20. We've seen the Colts or the Texans since then fall to the New York Jets 21-13, but they got it done in week 8 versus the Indianapolis Colts 23-20. I led with they've played the Colts now both times, AFC South family business. Week 1 and then in week 8, both of those games decided by a field goal or less. This one decided by a field goal. The game earlier in the season in week 1 decided by 2 points. 5 points separates these two teams in their two contests. And my guess is had Joe Flacco started both of these games, the outcome could have been different in both of them, which is part of the reason they made the switch, right? We talked about that on the podcast earlier this week on Tuesday, that they benched Anthony Richardson. It's the right move from a team building standpoint, from a morale standpoint. Like, hey, let's give us a chance to win. It's if you're a fan of Anthony Richardson, if you're a fan of his long-term success and growth and development, you're not happy about it, and it's not the right move, right? But again, you can't look the other 52 guys in the eyes and say, hey, we're putting us in the best position to win by putting Anthony Richardson in as the starting quarterback. You can't tell them that when they've seen Joe Flacco play the way he's played this season for them and how the offense looks with Flacco in. He gives them the best chance. And the same can be said. I mean, we went through this game already, so I won't beat a dead horse. But we talked about Anthony Richardson's numbers in this game and how pedestrian they were and how he struggled this season from an accuracy standpoint. He's completing less than 50% of his passes this season. This game is a microcosm of that. 10 of 32. I think we crunched the numbers, and that came out to like 43% completion percentage, 175 yards, a touchdown, and interception. And his rushing, it's not dynamic enough to offset the fact that he sucks as a passer right now, right? It'd be one thing if, hey, look, he's struggling throwing it, but damn, is he not dynamic as a runner. And so while he might be struggling as a passer, will endure the struggles throwing it because his legs are a problem and he's scoring points and he's hurting defenses. And that's going to open up things for him in the pass game and make it easy on him. That's not what's happening. He's been okay as a runner. He's gotten hurt as a runner, but he hasn't been dynamic as a runner. So you're not getting the benefit of his legs to offset the fact that he's struggling with his arm. And this was another one of those games. And then, big storyline too was him checking himself out of the game. I was listening to a beat reporter or an NFL insider, rather. I think it was Albert Breer, kind of talk about the situation. Matter of fact, he was doing it on the Rich Eisen podcast. It was a good listen. He talked about Richardson's just naive, right? Like he meant no ill will by it. There was no malicious intent by him taking himself out of the game. He just thought it was okay. Like, hey, I'm tired, coach. Need a blow. Let Joe have it. And his coach was like, bro, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you can't. This isn't high school. You can't check yourself out of the game. What are you doing? It was third and forever. We were going to run it anyway. Just stay in the game, hand it off, and then you catch your breather on the sideline after we punt. What are you doing, dude? Seriously. So it's a lesson learned. But when it's all said and done, the Texans prevailed in this game, but it came at a cost. We saw how valuable of a cost it was because they lost Stephon Diggs for the season to a torn ACL in this game. And they didn't know it at the time. He left this game, walked off on his own power, went to the locker room, did not return. We later would find out he tore his ACL. They won the game, but they did not win the war because that loss of Stephon Diggs led to the loss on Thursday Night Football versus the Jets. They didn't have anything. You watched that game. CJ Stroud struggled because the line was in shambles. He was sacked 8 times, but he also didn't have anywhere to go with the football outside of Tank Dell and Schultz at the tight end position. And so it was rough. I'm seeing way too much of Hutchinson. I don't even know his first name, but I'm seeing way too many of a bunch of funny lookings that don't have anything, that have no business being that close to the football field that many times. And CJ Stroud suffered because of it. And I say that to defend CJ Stroud because he was not good. I could make the argument that that's the worst game we've seen CJ Stroud play in his NFL career. He was not good. He was not accurate. He was not comfortable. And it showed in the game on Thursday night. So while they did win this game versus the Colts, which is big because if you want to win the division, you got to take care of the teams in your division. And they've now swept the Indianapolis Colts. And so that's a big deal. Still, losing Diggs for the season, much bigger blow than winning this game. And so I'm pretty sure they would trade a loss in this game against Indy for the health of Diggs moving forward. And so we'll see what happens when they get Nico Collins back, because that's going to be huge for them the rest of the way. And then they can't afford any more injuries to the receiver position. Like Tank Dell can't get injured. Nico Collins can't get injured again. They got to stay healthy, and they'll be fine if they can have those two guys like they did last year. If not, Texans could be on the beginning of a descent that could be very, very nasty. And I think that's part of the reason why Indianapolis made the switch at quarterback, because they see an opportunity for them to potentially seize this division. And look, now the Texans are 6-3. They go to Minnesota on Sunday Night Football with Joe Flacco as their quarterback and win. They're 5-4 and just a game out of first place. Now, granted, season sweep for the Texans. So just like we talked about with the Bucs and the Falcons, they're going to need to win, be better than them by a game because they got swept by the Texans. But you just want a chance. You just want a chance. And with the injury situation for the Texans, the Colts now have a shot. They weren't able to get it done, but it was good to see Jonathan Taylor back out there. He looked good. I think this was his first game back since the injury. He might have been back the week prior, but 20 carries, 105 yards, and a touchdown. He looked really good again. It's good to see JT Money back. He's really back. Josh Downs had a big 69-yard catch for a touchdown. That's where the bulk of Anthony Richardson's pass yards came from. 109 yards receiving for Josh Downs. But this was bad. There were some drops and things of that nature, but this was bad offensively. Now we get to the 4:00 games. Saints, Chargers. It's not a lot to see here, man. The Chargers offense is hard to watch. Man, is this thing. This is a throwback and an ode to like 1992. This shit is just tough to watch. But Justin Herbert, man, is he good. Man, is he good. This was one of those games where you appreciate Herbert for who he is. and what he's capable of doing. Because this was one of the first times where the run game, in a win for the Chargers, where the run game wasn't the lead catalyst, so to speak. This was Justin Herbert saying, "Hey, I still can do this at a high level. Just I know we got a coach that wants to run it, but just in case you forgot, I still can do this at a very high level. So don't forget that I'm still one of them ones in this league. And sometimes you just got to remind people. You just got to pop out and show teams. And that's what Herbert did in this game. He made some incredible throws, used his legs to create some opportunities outside the pocket. He dealed inside and out of the pocket. 20 of 32, 279, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Run game was solid, but Ladd McConkey continues to be one of his few dynamic targets. He had 6 catches, 111 yards, including a couple of touchdowns, the last of which was the nail in the coffin. It was a crazy throw by Herbert, even better catch by McConkey. Josh Palmer had a big 45-yard grab in this game as well. This is a good Chargers defense, right? You couple that with a solid run game and Justin Herbert, and they're going to win games, but 26-8, like that's the kind of football. Like we watched most of us watched the Monday night game against Arizona. Like they can't afford mistakes because they have such a small margin for error because of how they play, right? And so they have to take care of the ball. They didn't on Monday night against the Cardinals, and they lost, right? 17-15. They took care of the ball. They ran it. They did the things that they needed to do. They scored touchdowns, and they took advantage of Spencer Rattler starting again. He stinks. I hate to say it because he's a youngin. You know, I try to take care of the youngin and show them love and the affection that they need, and give them a chance to grow. They're like little seeds. You gotta plant them and you gotta water them, right? And he no bueno, right? He's no bueno. 12 of 24, 156 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. He got benched midway through this game. They put in Jake Haener. He wasn't much better. And I know they are rejoicing in New Orleans that they're like this is the saga of Derek Carr, right? You think you can do better. He's not good enough. And then, he has to show you, oh, yeah, you think you can do better than me? Okay, well, here you go, right? Last year, we were talking that shit with Jameis, right? Jameis Winston might be better than Derek Carr. So Derek's like, oh, really? All right, I'm hurt now. I can't play for 2 weeks. And I don't know if he ever got hurt for like 2 weeks, but he would leave the game at in the second quarter and say, all right, Jameis is better. Let Jameis finish the game. And Winston would always blow it and they would lose, right? And he'd come back and say, see, you need me, right? Did it again here. Like, oh, you think, because I'm guilty as charged. I'm guilty right here. You got me. My hands are up. I was like, I think Spencer Rattler might take his job at some point this season. And Derek Carr said, oh, really? You think so? Okay. I'm hurt. I'll be back in a month. Let's see how you guys fare while I'm gone. They put Spencer Rattler in, and this shit got ugly fast. And he's like, I'm back. So how'd the Spencer Rattler experiment go? And they're like, who? Spencer who? Man, shit. We looking for a quarterback next year in the draft. Why you bullshitting? You better start winning some goddamn game. And this is Derek Carr, right? Derek Carr always allows you to see that there ain't no shit on this roster better than him. And then he proceeds to go win games so you can't replace him. So the Saints will win 6-7 games this year. Who you drafting at quarterback with the 16th pick in the draft, with the 14th pick in the draft? Who you getting at quarterback? Let me answer that. Hey, Keith, come here. They just asked who the Saints drafting in the draft next year at quarterback at 14th overall. Keith said, who? Nobody. Nobody. That's the answer. So, sucks to be the Saints. You started 2-0. I keep saying this. Every time we talk about the Saints, I say the same shit over and over again. 2-6. They started 2-0 and they scored 91 points in the first 2 games of the season. I don't know if they've scored 91 points total in the 6 games since. And they've lost all 6. Ouchie. They're now 2-6 are the Saints. Chargers are 4-3. I don't know about these Chargers, man. I don't know. I don't know if they've got enough juice. This is a Greg Roman offense. This is what you signed up for, right? This is Jim Harbaugh. So I guess we'll see. Bills Seahawks. This was ass kicking. This was belt to ass right here. 31-10 final score. Bills win this game, and they won this thing relatively easy. It really never felt like Seattle was going to win this game. It was 7-0, and it was 7-3, then it was 14-3. And then it kind of felt like the floodgates just kind of opened at that point. Once they got to 14, it started to rain. It started to do that Seattle shit, right? It started misting, then it started raining, and they didn't have DK Metcalf, and you could see that Buffalo smelt blood in the water. And then next thing you know, you looked up, it was 31-3, and I was like, can I turn this shit off? And they was like, it ain't no more games, bro. I was like, okay, don't worry about it. Yeah, that one got ugly fast. The Bills kicked their ass. Allen looked good. They ran the ball. James Cook, 17 carries, 111 yards. He ran over a defender in the end zone, knocked his helmet off. Josh Allen, 24-34 for 283, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Khalil Shakir looked, to be back into the form of early in the season. 9 catches, 107 yards, excuse me. Keon Coleman, this was his best performance as a pro. He's coming on, right? I think Josh Allen is gaining more and more trust in him. And he kind of is starting to feel like Rashid Rice from a season ago, right? Where slowly, remember, it took Rashid a little while, right? But Rashid got comfortable. Mahomes got comfortable with Rashid. And then all of a sudden, by the time we got to the end of the regular season, Rashid Rice was ready for postseason ball. Keon Coleman is trending in that direction. He's not at that level yet, but he's trending in that direction. He and Josh are starting to get on the same page. They're starting to look for that back shoulder fade. He's starting to trust him. Hey, I'm going to just throw it up to you, Keon. You a big boy. Go get it, right? You used to be a basketball player. Go box him out and go get the rock. And so you're starting to see Josh is starting to gain trust and going to zero. And, they still got the tight ends. Amari Cooper, dealing with an injury. He may not play this week. They're still trying to, work him in, but they're getting their shit together in Buffalo. So we'll see what happens. As for Seattle, I just don't know what to make of these dudes, man. Geno, 21-29, 212, no touchdowns, 1 interception. This is the shit I'm talking about, though. And I don't know who their offensive coordinator is, right? I don't know who he is. But there should never be a game where Kenneth Walker has 9 carries. And this is like the 4th or 5th time I've had this conversation where I go, what are we doing with one of the most dynamic backs in the NFL? What are we doing here? Like, what's the move here? Like, they're not utilizing one of the best weapons that they have. I don't care that he had 9 carries for 12 yards. He's one of those dudes that he could be at 6 carries for -4 yards, but that 7th carry could go for 78. So you got to keep giving it to him. You got to keep putting the ball in his hands because he is a weapon. And for some reason, they think that the ball being in Geno's hands is better than the ball being in Kenneth Walker III's hands. I can't explain it. It's not my team, so I'm not going to bitch about it. But you want to lose games? Keep not feeding Kenneth Walker III. That's the easiest way to get your ass kicked. And they did, especially when there's no DK Metcalf. Good luck. You're going to need it. So I just don't know what to make of the Seahawks offense when they're not feeding one of their best players. And they didn't in this game, and the end result was a 21-point beatdown. Broncos, Panthers, much of what you expect. Broncos take care of business 28-14. The good news here was we got to see 2 young quarterbacks play, right? Bo Nix played well too, right? 28 of 37, 284, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. By far and away, the best performance of young Bo Nix's career. He was sharp early and often. He never really put the ball in harm's way for the first time in any game this season. Even the Tampa game where they dominated and he didn't throw any interceptions. He also didn't throw any touchdown passes in that game. And he also almost got picked off like once or twice. The ball was never in harm's way in this game. He looked to be in total command and control of this offense. He did whatever he wanted to do, as we can tell. This is probably the highest completion percentage game he might have had this season, too, especially on that many attempts. This looked like a Sean Payton offense with Drew Brees at the helm, being surgical. He looked really good. Conversely, the second-year quarterback, Bryce Young, still got some work to do. But there were times where I went, hey, Bryce, that's not bad. Yeah. And then there were times where I went, oh, Bryce, you can't do that, Bryce. This isn't Alabama, buddy. All right. This isn't Alabama. You're not in high school anymore. This isn't Matter Day, right? I think that's where he went, right? You can't do that, buddy. Sorry. 24 of 37, 224, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. But that's an improvement. He wasn't even doing that earlier in the season. And you know what? What's crazy was early in the game, you thought to yourself, this was a fleeting thought. It didn't last very long. The Broncos fumbled, right? The Panthers get the ball and they go right down and they score a touchdown. I go, hey, Bryce, look at you. Hey, you trying to win today? And he was like, nah. But I'm glad you thought highly enough of me to even ask the question. After that touchdown, they didn't score again until the Broncos had scored 28 unanswered points. But it was fun while it lasted. They were up 7-0. That's not the first time they've been up 7-0, but it normally doesn't end well for Carolina, and it didn't in this game. They're now 1-7, and we've heard rumblings that they're now listening. Hey, we're listening to offers for Bryce Young. I don't think they're going to trade him, but I'd love to see somebody rescue that kid. Raiders, where you at? Go get him. Go get Bryce. Go rescue him. Give him a shot closer to home. Let's see what he's got. Go get him. Give him a shot. Speaking of the Raiders, Chiefs Raiders, AFC West family business. If these two teams say they ain't did it, then they ain't did it. But if they did, but that's family business. And this was some solid family business. The Raiders, again, when it's family business, throw the records out the window. These teams are going to compete. 27 of 38 for 262, 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. That's one of the better games for Mahomes this season. That's how rough it's been for him this year. But they're still 7-0. That should be scary, by the way. I keep telling y'all keep talking about how Mahomes is not doing this and not doing that. I said, here's what you should be talking about. They're not doing those things, and they're still finding ways to win. That shit should be scary to the rest of the National Football League. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Kareem Hunt, 21 carries, 59 yards, 1 touchdown. Boy, do they miss Isaiah Pacheco. He should be coming back here shortly. Kelsey, 10 catches, 90 yards, 1 touchdown. This kind of felt like a throwback Kelsey game. Like, I haven't really seen Kelsey, go off in a game this season. He might have had 1 or 2 games where he was really solid, but this is the first time where I felt like him and Mahomes were doing that thing that they do so beautifully, which is, connect on some off schedule. Travis sits down in the zone, Patrick gets it to him, or Patrick extends and he breaks his route off and finds open space, and Patrick gets it to him and he's rumbling down the field. That's the kind of bag they were in this game. And I don't feel like they've really been in that bag this season to this point. So it was good to see that if you're a Chiefs fan, but like they've done all season long, they found ways to win. The defense was solid enough. This is what I was telling, my buddy who's a Raiders fan. I said, if your coach, Antonio Pierce, could just have some patience instead of yanking Gardner Minshew, because Gardner's Gardner. He's going to throw picks. Some of them back-breaking, others not so much. But he's going to throw picks. He's going to make mistakes, but he's going to make plays, and he's going to have games where he doesn't turn it over, and you're going to have a shot. And if you just let him play for the entire season, you're going to win 7 or 8 games, which is not what my buddy wants to do. He wants to tank. He wants to bottom out. He wants to get in a position to get a quarterback next year. And I'm like, Antonio Pierce can't afford to do that. So he's going to do whatever he can do to try to win. But Gardner Minshew was really good in this game, right? 24 of 30 for 209, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He was sacked 5 times, however, and they got all the way down there. And on a 4th down, they went for it, and Gardner Minshew took a sack. And in that situation, it's 4th down, bro. You can't get sacked. You have to throw the football at least up for grabs so that anything can happen. A pass interference can happen, anything. But it's 4th down. Like, you getting sacked accomplishes nothing. Travell Wharton got him. I think can't be Travell Wharton. He's the offensive lineman, right? What's his name? It's something Wharton. Let me see. What's his damn name? It might be Travell. It can't be Travell Wharton. I ain't tripping. That man's name is not Travell. Tershawn. There it is. Tershawn Wharton got that sack on a pivotal 4th down. And that kind of felt like the best chance for the Raiders right there, right? At that moment, if you watch that game, that sack there at that time is 17-13. Chiefs up. You score a touchdown, you take the lead 20-17. We got ourselves a ball game, folks. But Mahomes had just thrown a pick. You're in prime real estate. You're in scoring position, and you got to come away with something. And to come away with nothing, and I don't disagree with the aggressive call to go for it. You just got to come away with something, right? And they didn't. And after that, you kind of felt like, okay, they're going to lose this game. Then they had to fumble. Gardner Minshew got sacked, and he fumbled, and you could see where it was heading after that. And ultimately, they lost the game. And then, of course, I saved the best for last. Commanders and Bears, 18-15 win for the Bears. And let me just say this. The Chiefs are now 7-0. The Raiders are now 2-5 on the season. So, or are they 2-6? 2-6, excuse me. They haven't had their bye week yet. Only unbeaten team in the NFL, as I mentioned earlier in the show. Bears and Commanders, the score doesn't do this game any justice. It's actually a good watch. We seem to play some of these type of games at home. We did it with the Giants a couple of years ago in 2022 on a Sunday night where the score wasn't great. I think it was a 20-12 game, but it was an entertaining 20-12 if there's a such thing. This was a very entertaining 18-15 game, if there's a such thing. Maybe it was because I'm a Commanders fan, but it was very frustrating watching this game because the Commanders dominated this game every way imaginable except for where it mattered most, and that was the scoreboard. And, for 3 quarters, the Bears could do nothing in this game. And then, right at the end, they get this big touchdown run at the end of the 3rd quarter, and it breathed life into a dead Bears offense. And they essentially, like in the 4th quarter, going into the 4th quarter, Caleb Williams he was 4 of 13 for 33 yards in the game. 4 of 13 for 33 yards. And anybody that watched that game looked and said, man, Caleb looks awful, right? But you got to give him credit. By the time they got to the end of the game, he made the plays that needed to be made. That 4th down throw was awful again, and he was bailed out. But he overcame a terrible start. I've seen guys go into the tank with the way he was playing. I've seen guys go into the tank, and he didn't do that. And so you got to give credit where credit is due. He gave his team a chance. And they took the lead. Like, DeAndre Swift was the main ingredient here, though. 18 carries, 129 yards, including the 56-yarder that changed the entire complexity of the game. That gave them a chance. And they got that touchdown, and they took the lead with 23 seconds left in the game. Got the 2-point conversion and was up 15-12. And then we all know what happened after that. Jaden Daniels all week long. Will he, won't he play with dealing with the ribs issue? Went out there, gave it a go, and played his ass off. 21 of 38, 326, a touchdown, no interception. He also added 52 rush yards on 8 carries. So he almost accounted for 400 yards of total offense, despite not practicing for much of the week. Terry McLaurin, 5 catches, 125 yards. He was big in the game, but obviously the play that everybody wants to talk about and that we'll continue to talk about for many, many, many years to come is the Hail Mary at the end of this game. I call it a assortment of different names. The Washington Walk-Off, the Bear Trap, and Noah's Ark are all really good names that I enjoy personally. But when it's all said and done, it was a game that the Commanders should have won. Now, we hear that all the time. Doesn't matter what you should have done. It's what did you do? And it would have been disappointing had the Commanders not won this game because of how they dominated in just about every statistical category, but weren't able to, score points. Too many penalties, untimely, at untimely positions in the game that negated either touchdowns or positions that were set up for them to score touchdowns. And the Bears were 2 of 12 on third downs. Commanders weren't great themselves, but they were 5 of 15 on third downs. Right, one is better than the other. The Commanders had 72 total plays in the game to the Bears 60. The Bears had 307 total yards of offense. The Commanders had 481. The Bears had 105 yards passing in this game. The Commanders had 313. Like, these numbers aren't close. Now, the Bears did outrush the Commanders 202 to 168. And so that they did win. But this was the big stat. And I always tell you guys, if you really want to know why a game is the way it is, just go to turnovers and the red zone. And if you want to go a little bit deeper, look at the third down conversion rate. But you usually can tell how a game turned out by going to the red zone and the turnovers. The Commanders were 0 of 3 in the red zone. The Bears were 1 of 2. And the Bears lost a turnover and the Commanders didn't. If the Bears don't lose that turnover, we probably win the game, because they kept the Commanders out of the end zone and they were 0 of 3 in the red zone. Without that turnover, the Bears probably win the game. Hell, just defend the Hail Mary and they win the game, right? But when it's all said and done, the better team won the game. The team that was supposed to win the game won the game. And that's a play that will go down in NFL lore. And we all saw the Tyreek Stevenson fallout. There's rumors that he's going to be benched to start the game this week against Arizona. He's going to be out there at some point, but he's not going to start the game. He is a starting corner in this league. He is going to be benched. So we'll see if that actually happens or not. That is Slate Skating. So let's get to my money picks of the week. And before we do that, I want to have a quick PSA. I have my LTN exclusives stream about the Dominican Republic trip to Punta Cana, to the resort, coming up at 7:30 tonight. So I want you guys to be in attendance. If you're interested in going, you want to hear what it's all about, tune in tonight. I'm going to answer any and every question that you may have regarding that. If you have no questions, I'll be doing all the talking. And if you do decide down the road you want to go, the sooner the better. I will say that. The sooner you get involved, the better it is, because you can spread your payments out over time. You don't have to feel like you have to pay, right away. But we're going to get into that tonight. So I've already got the stream set up. So if you don't meet me there, beat me there. All I have to do is record my Washington Commanders CNN episode, and then I'm going to jump over to that stream. So hopefully you guys will join me if you're interested in attending. Even if you're not, you want to hang out, that's cool too. But that video is all about the trip, and I look forward to chopping it up with those that are in attendance. So let's get into my money picks of the week. And I talked about this on the kickback session this week, that this is going to be a wild week. Right. Last week was a relatively easy week. I always like to say, if you just colored inside the lines, you were fine. Right. You're going to have a nice looking picture. Wasn't going to probably stand out from the rest, but you're going to have a nice looking picture and you would be fine. If you tried to color outside the lines, you tried to, make the bold outline with the crayon, right. And then try to color inside and make it look nice and neat and sweet, you're going to make a mess of it. Right? Just color inside the lines, man. Like that was last week. This week, you got to make some decisions, right? You got to make some tough decisions. We call them TDs around here. You got to make some TDs this week, all right? This ain't last week where you just go chalk. Yeah. That team's better. That team's better. That team's better. This week, it's a lot of evenly matched teams, and you got to make some decisions. I already made a toughie, and I came out on top. I'm already 1-0, so my week is off to a great start. Let's keep the party going. And so let's go through the slate of games this week, shall we? I think we shall. And we start with the Dallas Cowboys on the road at the Atlanta Falcons. The Cowboys are in free fall mode. Free falling. The Cowboys are struggling. They'd gotten their act together, it felt like, with 2 straight wins, including a big last-second victory on the road at Pittsburgh. They were 3-2. They were feeling good about themselves. And then the Lions happened, right? They got their asses whooped. I mean, that loss, they beat them so bad in that game, that counted as 2 losses. They beat them so bad, they didn't even recover over the bye week. They came out of the bye week and looked just as limp dick as they went into the bye week, right? That's how bad that ass whooping was. They ass was so sore from that good old-fashioned, passionate ass whooping and getting your shoes, coat, and your hat taken that they came back and they still couldn't sit down. And so they proceeded to get beat up again against the San Francisco 49ers. They made a late comeback and a late charge, but too little, too late, like JoJo. This week, though, they're on the road. No Michael Parsons again. You know what's crazy is this man can jump behind the mic and do his little Bleacher Report show, but he can't play ball. That's crazy to me, right? And I get it. One involves you actually running around, stopping, planting, jumping, cutting, all that good stuff. The other just it just requires you to run your mouth. But if I'm a Cowboys, I don't want to hear from a guy who's not contributing and participating, right? That's crazy. But I mean, that's the world the Dallas Cowboys live in. It couldn't be me, right? Wouldn't let that shit happen to me though. But that ain't my team. That ain't my squad. That ain't who I root for. So no skin off my damn back. But he's out again. No Deron Bland. But I got an eerie feeling about this one. This feels like a Cowboys victory. The Falcons have been awful at home this season. And first of all, how are they at home again? When are they going to play 3 straight on the road? When are they going to play 3 out of 4 on the road? When are they going to play 4 out of 5 on the road? What are they doing back at home again? They should be on the road for the next month straight. Nobody's played more home games this season to this point than the Atlanta Falcons. We're going into week 9. I bet you they've played, this is their 6th home game of the season. If not 7th. Can't be 7. There's no way. Somebody check that for me, please. Somebody fact check me on that. I'm going to guess this is their 6th home game. This is ridiculous. And they stink at home, by the way. I think their only home victory this season, I think they got 2 home victories. Saints and Bucks. Every other game at home, they've lost. Let's see. I might be able to tell you right now how many home games they've played by just figuring out the record. Because they've got 3 losses. They've won 2 at home. They've played 5. This is going to be their 6th game. I'm right. Because they got 3 losses. I think all 3 of their losses have come at home this year. Shit, they play most of their games at home. I bet that all 3 of their losses have come at home. Let's see. They lost to Pittsburgh in week 1. They lost to Kansas City in week 2. Those were both home games. And then they lost to Seattle last week at home. So that's 3 losses. right? Then they won 2 at home, Saints and Bucks. That's 5 games. This is their 6th game at home. That's ridiculous. They're 2-3 at home this season. They only can beat NFC South opponents at home. This is not an NFC South opponent. Dallas is desperate. They can't fall to 3-5. They have to get back to 500. They got a big game next week against the Philadelphia Eagles. They have to win this game for confidence and morale purposes. They'll probably get Michael Parsons and Deron Bland back for that game against Philadelphia next week. And so they could be right back in the mix. Who knows? I don't like Atlanta at home. I like Dallas in this game. Give me the Cowboys on the road to get the job done. Ravens at home versus the Denver Broncos. This is a big-time matchup. This is a star matchup. 2-5-3 teams, both really good defensively. Denver is better defensively than Baltimore is. And anything could happen in this game. Lamar's not 100%. That Broncos defense is damn good. They can get after Lamar. They're a very similar defense to the one Lamar just lost to in the Cleveland Browns. The key will be, can Baltimore's defense get to Bo Nix and force him into some mistakes? If they can do that, they're going to win the game. If they can't do that, this game's going to be a lot closer than it needs to be. And then you find yourself in the same predicament you found yourself in last week with a team that you probably should beat, hanging around late with a chance to steal the game. And if that happens, look out for the Denver Broncos. I surmise that the Ravens are going to snap out of it. They're going to get it done. They're going to win this game, and they're going to get to 6-3. And they're going to set the stage for a monster matchup next week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. 6-3 Ravens, 7-2 Steelers. I don't know who the Steelers are playing this week. I think the Steelers are off this week. Or are they? They got to be off this week. And so that'll set up a big matchup for the Steelers and the Ravens next week. 6-2 versus 6-3, right? So give me the Ravens in that ball game. So Buffalo Bills at home taking on the Miami Dolphins. AFC East family business. You know how the family do it. And, last week felt like a last stand of sorts for the Dolphins, and it didn't get done. And it was good to see Tua out there, and he had a scramble, and he slid, and everybody stood up and applauded him for doing that. And it's good to see him back out there. It gives this Dolphins team some purpose. It gives them life. It gives them an identity again. The problem is they're 2-5 now, and it's just a bit too late for that. But Buffalo, they're no sure thing, right? They haven't been, world beaters this season, especially at home. They've had some close calls at home outside of the Jacksonville game. Feels like they've had some close calls at home. Tennessee was close for a lot longer than it needed to be. Arizona was very close throughout in week 1. So there've been some closer games at home for this Bills team, but they found ways to win, and that is the most important thing. And I see them doing it again here. I'll take Buffalo at home over the Dolphins to improve to 7-2 and really start to run away with that division crown. They might have that thing wrapped up by week 13. New Orleans Saints at the Carolina Panthers. Derek Carr returns to the lineup. Boy, did they miss him. Not that he was killing it when he got injured, but it doesn't matter. Boy, the stuff behind him, not very good. And so him returning to the lineup gives them a shot in the arm. Panthers are going to roll with Bryce Young. I like this spot for Bryce at home against a Saints team that is struggling. Something's got to give. I would tell you right now, if there was no Derek Carr in this game, I think the Carolina Panthers could win. But there is Derek Carr in this game. And because of that, the Saints should and will win. Give me the New Orleans Saints to handle a little bit of NFC South family business. If these two teams said they ain't did it, then they ain't did it. But if they did, well, that's NFC North or South, family business. Cincinnati Bengals at home hosting the Las Vegas Raiders. Raiders are what? 2-6, losers of what? When's the last time the Raiders won a game? It's been a while, huh? They beat the Ravens in week 2. That was their first win of the season. I don't even know who they beat for their second win of the season. It's been a while, though. It's been a little while since they've won. This is a tough one because if they play the way they played last week against Kansas City, they'll win that game against Cincinnati. If they play the way that they've played for most of the games this season, which is uneven, up and down, turnovers, a bunch of mistakes, they'll lose like they've done 6 previous times this season. With Cincinnati, I look at the Raiders offense, you could score points. This Bengals defense stinks. It just stinks. And what's the status of T. Higgins? Is he good? Is the quad good? Is he out again? Because if I'm the Raiders and there's no T. Higgins, I'm just going to try to take away Jamar Chase and make somebody else beat me. And they have proven this season that without T. Higgins, they ain't shit. And, oh, by the way, he's going to be gone after the season. So you better figure it out sooner rather than later because he ain't going to be there next year. And right now, you ain't got shit without him. So it'll be interesting to see what happens if he doesn't go. If he goes, then Cincinnati's going to win this game hands down. If he doesn't go, Cincinnati could be in some trouble. But look, these are the type of games where I just go, look, man, just pick the home team and move on, dude. Like, really. And I don't know how I've gotten here with Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, but that's where I'm at with them. Just pick Cincinnati because they're home. Damn it. This is nasty. Give me this Bengals. Chargers who are the Chargers playing? This is such an inconspicuous game. Any game the Chargers are playing in, they're the new Tennessee Titans, are the Los Angeles Chargers. And in that they play such a boring brand of football that you really don't care to watch. Like, I don't need to see the Chargers on prime time. Like, that was the perfect spot for them on ESPN Plus. I don't need to watch them play at all this season in a primetime spot. My life will be better without them on my television screen. They're playing the Cleveland Browns this week. I could care less about any game that has been put on the schedule this season, sans for maybe Jacksonville, New England over in London. I could give 2 shits about Chargers Browns. That's how poorly I think of these two teams in terms of aesthetics, right? The Chargers are tough to watch. I've seen way too much Simi Fehoko. I've seen way too much Will Dissly this season. It's nasty, right? It's a nasty, nasty watch. That said, they are playing the Browns, who played a lot better last week. Jameis gives them some offensive firepower and some excitement. Something's going to happen, right? That's the essence of Jameis Winston. Either he's going to throw it to the right team or he's going to throw it to the wrong team. But he's going to throw the bitch, right? And that's why you got to love it. And if there's a reason to watch this game, that's the reason. I said all that to say this. The Chargers are the better of the two teams. Give me the Chargers in this game. I'm going to give you the winner. What the hell am I doing? What am I saying? You already know who I think is going to win the Commanders and Giants game. I don't need to hold it from you, withhold it, and tell you, well, you watch my show tonight to find out who is going to win the game. I'm not picking against the Commanders the rest of the season. If Five's healthy, I'm taking my boys. They just feel like the right side every week, but especially this week. But we've already seen a 2-6 team beat a 6-2 team at MetLife Stadium this week already. I don't want to see that repeated on Sunday in this 2-6 versus 6-2 matchup, but I don't think it will, because unlike the Texans, who couldn't score and looked awful on offense, the Commanders have looked really good on offense, even though they didn't score a bunch of points this past Sunday. They still won the game, and I think they're going to do the same on Sunday, complete the season sweep versus the Giants. I see them winning that game. Give me the Commanders in some NFC East family business. Yummy. Speaking of yummy, Patriots at the Titans. Does it get much yummier than that? Delicioso. Patriots at Titans. What you gonna do in that one, huh? What'd you do in that one? God, that is just atrocious. The fact that you have to pick a winner. Can I pick a tie, please? Zoinks! This is what I told myself. Normally in this game, what do? I just pick the home team. The Titans are the worst team in football, and they have no identity. At least the Patriots, I feel like, they're gonna try to out physical you. They're gonna try to be bullies. They're not very good at it, but at least they're gonna try. They're gonna try to run the football. They're gonna try to make some plays. You know, the Titans just feel like they exist. And if Will Levis, who they told me earlier in the week, hey, he's starting to throw the ball, he's feeling a lot better. If he starts, they definitely lose. If it's Mason Rudolph, the Titans have a shot. I'm taking the Patriots here. I'm probably going to regret this because I probably should have just stuck to my script, which is when it's two teams that are evenly matched, or usually two teams that just stink, take the home team. I'm going against my better judgment. I'm taking the Patriots to make it 2 in a row. Might be their last win of the season. Who knows? But got to get them while they're there to be got. I think the Titans have a great shot at ending up with the number 1 overall pick. They play in a terrible division, which means their strength of schedule is going to be horrendous. I think they have a legitimate shot at having the number 1 overall pick. This is going to go a long way in determining that. Good luck, Tennessee Titans fans. You're going to need it because the Patriots stink. Arizona Cardinals hosting the Chicago Bears. The Bears. What a gut punch that was for the Bears last week. How do they respond? I think the biggest takeaway from that game last week was that their coaching staff is a bunch of nincompoops. And it's hard to win consistently in this league when you don't have smart people in charge. Matt Eberflus is clueless, and Shane Waldron is just as, if not more clueless than the head coach. And when you put that group together, that's a losing recipe. And so they've played games this season against lesser opponents, and they've gotten fat off of those opponents. When they've played quality teams, they've lost. This is and oh, by the way, the Bears have not won a game away from Soldier Field or London this season. Okay. Any true road games, they've lost this season. Any home games or neutral site games, they've won. So they're on the road, and until they win a game on the road, I'm going to keep picking against them on the road. So give me the Arizona Cardinals, who have won 2 straight and are playing some of their best football. Kyler Murray was outstanding. I don't think I talked enough about this during the Dolphins-Cardinals recap because I spent so much time talking about Miami. But James Conner, matter of fact, let me go back real quick and just give some love to those two in particular because they were really good in that game, right? Kyler Murray was 26 of 36 for 307, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. James Conner, 20 carries, 53 yards, and a touchdown. Those numbers don't wow you, but when they needed James Conner, he was huge. And it was really good to see Marvin Harrison Jr. Really get involved. 6 catches, 111 yards. I think that's his first career 100-yard performance and a touchdown. He had a sick touchdown grab. Trey McBride, the tight end, 9 catches, 124 yards. Interesting. I got the Cardinals at home besting the Bears. I think there's going to be a little bit of residue from that loss on Sunday versus the Commanders. And I also think that there may have been a bit of exposing of that team now. Like that's the kind of loss that unravels you. You get your coach fired, and you start anew, right? That's the kind of loss that seems like the beginning of the end for a team. Let's see if they can bounce back. They could prove me wrong. I don't know. I don't feel like this team has resiliency, because resiliency usually starts from the head coach, and doesn't strike me as a guy that's all that brilliant. So, Eagles at home versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm going to make this nice, short, and sweet. The Jaguars are down their top 2 targets at receiver. This sound familiar, by the way. The Eagles' last 3 opponents have been, downtrodden offenses who are missing key players on offense, and the Eagles have taken full advantage of that. Against the Browns, no Nick Chubb. I mean, again, nobody's seen Nick Chubb until here, recently, but still, no Chubb. Amari Cooper was about to be traded, and you could hear those rumors, and so you knew, and so you took advantage of that situation. The next week they played against the Giants. They had all their stuff for the most part. They just kicked their ass. And then last week, no T. Higgins. This week, no Brian Thomas Jr., no Christian Kirk, which means no problem for the Philadelphia Eagles. This is going to get ugly fast. I expect the Eagles to be done with the Jaguars by halftime of this game. I got the Eagles winning this one big, and setting up a big matchup next week against the Dallas Cowboys. Detroit and Green Bay. I've already talked about this game, so I don't really need to, harp on it again. I've got Detroit winning that game. That's my money matchup of the week. I expect it to be a tightly contested ball game, whether Jordan Love starts and finishes or not. I think Green Bay has shown the ability to hang in even if Jordan Love is not present. But when it's all said and done, nobody's playing better football in the league right now than the Detroit Lions, and I expect that to continue. Not to the degree that they've been scoring up over 40 and blowing out opponents, but I do expect them to continue to play well. This should look a lot like that Minnesota game on the road, where they showed their grit and their toughness and their mettle, and they find a way to get it done. I've got the Lions in that game. Seahawks at home hosting the Los Angeles Rams. Another one of those games. Man, I don't know what to do here, man. This is NFC West family business. You know how the family do it. No, I really don't. I don't know what to do here, because all of a sudden my mind was made up initially. Like, yo, the Rams about to get hot. I picked them last week, and I'm going to ride them until they give me a reason not to. And then Puka Nacua was like, yo, I ain't practiced yesterday. And once I heard that, I was like, uh-oh. Because we watched that game last week. When Puka Nacua made a much bigger difference than Cooper Kupp did, right? It felt like Puka was the new Cooper Kupp, like he's the new focal point of the offense. If you take Puka Nacua out, you've taken a large chunk of their offense out of the mix. So for me, I was like, yeah, nah, this ain't going to work for me. If you ain't got Puka Nacua, and I don't know, he might still play, but sounds like he might miss this game. And if that's the case, the Seahawks don't have DK Metcalf. Like, I don't feel comfortable with them, no DK. But you take away Puka Nacua, I ask myself, which one is a bigger deal? No Puka or no DK? That's hard because, man, the Seahawks looked awful last week without DK Metcalf. And that could have just been Buffalo, and, it could have been an assortment of things. But they look awful. But we've watched the Rams this season, but that was without Puka and Cooper Kupp. I'm almost convincing myself to go back and take the Rams here, but I'm going to stick to my guns, sticking with the home team. Give me the Seahawks. I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't feel comfortable doing this. I might regret doing this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Give me the Seahawks in that game. Minnesota Vikings at home against the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday Night Football. This game was flexed in the Sunday Night Football, if you can believe that. Like, most people are like, yo, the Vikings and the Colts flexed? The Colts are 4-4. And I think when they initially did it, they thought you were going to get some Anthony Richardson, so a young, exciting quarterback, right? And, the Vikings were undefeated when they flexed this game. They've since lost 2 straight. So, yeah, it's lost a little bit of its luster, but I think it's actually going to be a quality ball game, especially with Joe Flacco starting. I think the Colts will be game. They'll be in that mix for, the vast majority of this game. But I think when it's all said and done, the Vikings are just a better team. And I think their defense is going to get to Joe Flacco, remind him of his age. He's going to turn it over a couple of times. They're going to end up, going away with this one late and winning and getting back in the left-hand column after starting out 5-0, dropping their last 2. They're going to get back to their winning ways and get to 6-2 on the season and back into that NFC North race. Give me the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday night football. And I don't really have to tell you what I'm doing on Monday night, right? Bucks, Chiefs, no Mike Evans, no Chris Godwin. Do I really have to? No, right? You know what I'm doing there, right? Right. Chiefs on Monday night. So those are my money picks of the week. And so that is going to do it for me, your man, Louie T, here on the 462nd installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show and I hope you enjoy your weekend. I most certainly will. I look forward to chopping up with you guys next time. Until then, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. You guys take care. You can catch me on the live stream here in the next hour or so. I'm going to push it back to 8 o'clock because I have to record my Washington CNN episode. But after that, I'm going to jump on and we're going to talk about that trip. So I'll see you guys then. Until then, you guys take care. God bless and good night.